Okay, folks, so what's current in the situation of Afghanistan? Obviously, recrimination in the US continues. Yesterday, the G7 wasn't able to convince Biden. The threats from Taliban that if they extend beyond August 31, the withdrawal, they are not going to take it lightly. Biden commits to the 31. Panjshir Valley has created all kinds of stops and defenses against upcoming Taliban. What else happened yesterday? Modi, Putin discuss Afghanistan. India flags terror concerns at BRICS UNHRC. BRICS NSA meet discusses Afghanistan, cross-border terror, drug trafficking, all very relevant. This is the important part. India, Russia to form permanent high-level consultation channel. Now this is kind of interesting because China really can't be part of this because they've been putting a spanner all the time, right? India, Russia back joint efforts to ensure peace. India at UNHRC, Afghanistan shouldn't be used by Pakistan-based ultras. Taliban will help us in Kashmir, says Pak Neta. To be expected. To be expected, right? UN raises alarms over reports of executions in Afghanistan. Okay? Putin, US left Afghanistan in chaos. It raises threats for Russia and allies. Now, Putin's also getting worried, folks. I'm just telling you, they may have exulted for a short period, and as is China, right? China says sanctions against Taliban not productive. They know that, folks. If sanctioned hit, right, Afghanistan gets hit, though I think the target has to be Pakistan if the US wants to get the Taliban online. Then China, there is no way China can help commercially. It may have made some noises, which it generally does. It's a mercantile nation, right? Quad Navy set to kick off Malabar drills off Guam. This is an important message India is sending to China. Okay. Ungraceful retreat continues, like I said. In President Biden's speech, there was no acknowledgement of uncertainties, future that Afghan people and region now face. Overall, India has a tough task ahead, rebalancing equations in the region and beyond, even as it shores up its security. In its severity, the situation recalls Delhi's moment of reckoning with the collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War. This is no less a test of India's foreign policy. It sure is. Okay, as I was saying, G7 fails to sway Biden to delay Afghanistan withdrawal. Pakistan wants, so here are the contradictions, right? Pakistan wants Taliban to act against TTP. I don't think that's going to happen. Now, what do you have? Jaishankar say? India has divergence with US on Afghanistan EAM. Modi government focuses on bolstering ties with neighbors, Jaishankar. The biggest problem they have, or the biggest, as I said, divergence is the issue of Pakistan, not really about Afghanistan, okay? And of course, India didn't want to put any feet on the ground, which they should have. India, US agreed to continue with coordination, and they're doing a pretty good job at that, folks. When we talk about, cultural, when we talk about women in Afghanistan, how they're being treated, you got to see what happens in India, right? 12-year-old Rajasthan girl delivers baby, says 3 seniors raped her. So we really don't have a leg to stand on as far as treatment of women are concerned. What we have, Bangladesh world, Hasina warns radicals in wake of Taliban takeover. Okay, this is something very recent. On secret mission, CIA chief meets Taliban brass in Kabul. What else you have? You have can't let Pakistan groups use Afghanistan soil. Taliban to help us in Kashmir, right? CIA boss held secret meetings with Taliban leader in Kabul. Taliban appoints an ex-detainee at Guantanamo as acting defense minister. What do you expect? Well, what do you think his action is going to be, right? Taliban block Afghans access to airport. Now they're getting worried about all the Afghans leaving. This is what I was saying is happening on the other side. With machine guns, nests, mortars, surveillance, post-Panjshir fighters dig in to defend Valley. And this is going to be a solid defense. And like I said the other day, it's not an empire, as those two guys. This is the right word to use by Samir Saran. The unraveling of Pax Americana. It sure is. Okay. But that's good for India, right? India will continue to assess the US as its most important partner. A declining superpower is easier to do business with. It opens up a lot of space for India, folks. The reliability of the United States and trustworthiness will be measured as per its capacity to contain China, rise without disrupting the determination of states in the region to seek growth and development on their own terms. A transactional America will now encounter transactional friends. Now it's important for India. Apna nazariya bhi change kare. We have to be transactional. Get what we have to, folks. More after this. Cheers. So, folks, like in the United States, the biggest problem from India really is domestic politics. There's recrimination in the US and India. It's again going to be used, and it's looking like to be used for the upcoming UP polls for divisive politics. So what do we have here? A national consensus on Afghanistan says, but while dealing with the threat and cracking down on the religious extremism, it is important that the Taliban success is not used to demonize Indian Muslims. who have, like other citizens, condemned the fanatical form of Islam and the terror at the heart of it. Its rise must not be used to create an environment of fear. Cross-party consultations and resisting the temptation to deepen polarization will help. Second, what does Sagrika Ghosh write? Kabul echoes in Lucknow. He says, as Taliban takes over Afghanistan, echoes are being heard in Lucknow. During the monsoon session of the UP Assembly, CM Yogi Adityanath lashed out at the Taliban supporters, saying all those shamelessly supporting Taliban should be exposed. Earlier, two members of the All India Muslim Personal Law Board praised Taliban for showing courage and creating history. Both sides. Politicians use the power of religion because of diminished political status and credibility. Afghanistan is a wake-up call on dangers of playing excessive religious politics. The return of Taliban is an occasion for India to strongly assert modern democratic values at all levels of society, not double back into copycat medieval religious wars. And that's important. And more so because this is what India is doing. India to go with democratic bloc on recognizing Taliban, response to terror treatment of citizens to be crucial factors, and India to pretend Afghanistan peace talks in Doha. This was 12th August, and right after that, Qatar is a player. UAE, by giving shelter to the President Ghani, is become a player, and that's why Qatar was in Delhi, having kept Delhi out for a long time. All Afghan sections must be protected. India to Qatar. Deterioration of Afghanistan security a serious matter. Jaishankar, minister, meets Qatar special envoy. Okay. And what does India say? Won't recognize any Afghan government imposed by force. India, others at Doha meet. MEA slams Pakistan bid to blame India for terror, which it's going to continue trying to do. Okay. India joins nations in asserting it won't accept government set up by force. Then you have Harris faces a task of convincing Asian nations of US reliability after Afghanistan chaos. Important. So India has come Johnny-come lately to this whole table, but it's gotten very active. And knowing that Iran is very critical, Iran president-elect invites India for swearing-in event at just about the right time. Iran president backs India's role in Afghan peace process, and he should because he knows he needs it, right? Iran's president-elect's Khorasan bonding with India, but the contradictions show up here. Iraq cedes as US takes down Iranian targets. India is in a tough spot, but I think it can balance as far as Iran is concerned, right? RIL lines up petchem play with ADNOC in UAE. Reliance to set up international base in UAE. Why do I bring this commercial activity up? Because this is an extremely important strategic resource for India, which is oil. And if Reliance is putting its eggs in the basket of UAE, it tells you about India's geopolitical direction of this government, right? US strikes in Syria, Iraq target Iran-based militias, like I said. India and Afghanistan in Tajik huddle, already ahead of SCO, key SCO mission. This was all the hubber-dubber that was happening. Critical over all this region, whether it's Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Iran, are critical for India, right? Taliban seizes attack copter gifted by India to Afghanistan government. Wow. Okay. Regional power shift comes as a worry. India may be facing extended neighborhood that gives Pakistan a bigger arena and a problem with China, obviously, right? Taliban praises India for development efforts but warns India against military role. And they capture our helicopter, right? Ready for all contingencies in Afghanistan, says India, and I think it's playing its cards not too badly. Withdrawal symptoms, right, is what Rakesh Sood, right? It says, while Indian officials have participated in events where the Taliban have been present, India has been content to be let others take the lead. We have therefore been unable to plan options for ensuring security of both the Indian nationals and working in Afghanistan, as well as the diplomats and embassy in Kangal. And there remains the primary responsibility at the moment. India must help all Afghans provide refuge to Afghan Hindus, Sikhs, says PM. PM discusses Afghan situation with Merkel. US cuts off Taliban from Afghanistan, Pakistan assets. France evacuates 21 Indians from Kabul. So you see this relationship working. India, Vietnam hold naval drills in the SCS. This is an important message to our buddies in China. Then you have India, US seek inclusive government in Afghanistan with no place for terror. Panjshir can resist Taliban Afghan envoy, and I think that may be coming up, right? Didn't ask India to withdraw its diplomats at Taliban, but India did. And the reason India did was because I think even if the Taliban had promised security, there was enough information to suggest that the guys who are embedded there from Pakistan, which is Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba or the IS, would have created some problems as embarrassment. Priority is to evacuate 400 Indian Afghans with ties to India, Shindra tells US. That is important. They work together well, right? Then you have Indian origin South Africa people get threats, go into panic mode. And this is what's happening in South Africa. We can't take our eyes off because this is part of the BRICS, right? And Indians are facing massive trouble here, and that's unbelievable. We can't take our eyes off this ball either, folks. Indians in trouble in South Africa. So, a bit of a readout. The first one is by M.K. Bhadra Kumar, Understanding Taliban 2.0. The upheaval in Kabul needs to be seen in the context of radical realignments in the region and the transformation within the Taliban. He says, truly, it is incomprehensible why India shut its embassy in Kabul. A great opportunity was to plow a new Afghan policy independent of American tutelage. Here again, American tutelage, independent foreign policy without the kind of economic heft, no chance. The only plausible explanation for such unseemly hurry to retrench could be that the government takes a zero-sum view that if Pakistan has a sense of triumphant, then India must be the loser. That's not the case. There was real threat perceptions, folks. The paranoia in certain circles in India about the spillover from Afghanistan is unwarranted. The Taliban has an exclusively Afghan-centric agenda. That's time will tell. They're all old-fashioned nationalists. It is simply inconceivable that once ensconced in power, Taliban will play a subaltern role to any regional state. On the contrary, Taliban's Afghanness will inevitably surge as a robust sense of independence and strategic autonomy in statecraft. They will be interested in friendly relations with India. But we are going to wait and watch, right? And what is waiting and watching in Kabul? Sharath Sabharwal writes, going forward, if the Taliban act wisely and build an inclusive and stable system, they may be able to win international recognition and reduce their dependence on Pakistan. If, on the other hand, they stick to their old ways, they may end up generating opposition, violence and instability in the country, heightening concerns among Afghanistani neighbors. Each scenario will hold openings for India, and that is for sure, folks. In conclusion, a readout by Raja Mandla by C. Raja Mohan on Kabul, Delhi must wait. Absolutely right. As the tragic chaos at the Hamid Karzai International Airport in Kabul continues, two interconnected political negotiations unfolding are likely to determine Afghanistan's immediate future. One is focused on building a new political order within Afghanistan, and the other is about gaining international recognition for the incipient Taliban-led regime. Let me just tell you how important this international recognition is. Without that, there are no funds, no development, chaos, right? But how is it faring on the two unfinished tasks in Afghanistan? Constructing a credible government and securing international legitimacy for it. This we are talking about Pakistan. Taliban, to share power with other groups, it has to facilitate an acceptable accommodation between different factions of the Taliban. Difficult. Power sharing and distribution of the spoils of war, always difficult for any victorious coalition. It is likely to be harder among the fractious Pashtun tribes. Then there is the problem of including the non-Taliban formations in the new government. Then what is it? After decades of covert support to the Taliban, Pakistan has now come out into the open by carrying the Taliban on its political shoulders. It has promised the Taliban goodies from the rest of the world quickly. Pakistan can surely reap many rewards if it can manage this high wire act. Okay. For the Taliban, which is so deeply committed to a vigorous religious ideology, a significant internal and external reorientation will be wrenching and divisive. But the Pakistan army has never been shy of taking risks. Its records of success, however, is poor. Geography is also the reason Rawalpindi and Delhi pursue vastly different strategies towards Afghanistan. Both their strategies have roots in 19th century policies of the Raj. The Pakistan Army's quest for strategic depth in Afghanistan hangs back to the forward policy school that thought to actively control the territories beyond the Indus. Delhi, in contrast, stayed with a rival school in the Raj that called for masterly inactivity, a prudent approach to the badlands beyond the Indus. Okay. Masterly inactivity is not a passive strategy. It recognizes the futility of trying to control Afghanistan. It demands conserving one's scarce resources and deploying them at the most appropriate moment and location. I only hope it does not produce total inactivity. Pakistan's forward policy seeks political dominance over Afghanistan in the name of a friendly government. In Kabul, Delhi's strategy seeks to strengthen Kabul's autonomy vis-a-vis Rawalpindi and facilitate Afghanistan's economic modernization. The Afghan values that India supports, nationalism, sovereignty and autonomy, will endure in Kabul irrespective of the nature of the regime. Strategic patience coupled with political empathy for Afghan peoples and an active engagement will continue to keep Delhi relevant in Kabul's internal and external evolution. In the 90s, Pakistan and the Taliban had a free hand to shape Kabul's future as the world turned its back on Afghanistan after the Soviet troop withdrawal, but they failed quickly and miserably. This time around, the world is deeply concerned with Afghanistan's internal and external policies under the Taliban. That gives Delhi far greater room than in the 90s to deal with the current situation of Afghanistan, folks. So all is not lost, folks. Jai Hind.